Hi guys, it's Jordan here from Overland and welcome to my channel. So, if you have this and you plan to do this, or maybe just this, you're at the right place, because in this video I'm gonna tell you all the essentials mod in order to off-road your Subaru. I'm also gonna give you tips, examples and brand suggestions based on my experience. So watch till the end, you're gonna learn a lot. So before starting and before buying stuff like LED lights, alloy rims I don't even have, well, just get a good maintenance. I mean, change all your fluids, all your filters, do your timing belts. Also get spark plugs and ignition wires in good condition. Have good wheel bearings and not stuck brake calipers. And that's a good beginning. Also, make sure your Subaru is not fully rusted. Sadly, this is the reality, and especially check on the rear wings, rear strut towers, undercarriage, subframes. Make sure you don't have a lot of rust. And now, let's talk suspension. What I recommend is at least OEM-like struts and top hats in good condition, maybe even brand new. This is what gives you a comfortable, safe and efficient drive, so don't skip on that. Kayaba or KYB Peters, just like mine, or Bilston, provide good quality struts. Also, pretty often old Forester have a saggy butt, just like this, because of the self-leveling struts failing. Just take care of that and change the whole assembly. And if you carry a lot of gear, a lot of weight on the back of your Subaru, like your spare tire, a full kitchen setup, or even just recovery gear for off-roading, heavy-duty spring might be an option for you. Peters, like the one I run, Rallytech, Kings, you choose. That being said, I don't recommend raised spring because they are not good for articulation while off-roading, plus they give you a harsh ride. Another tips, if you have a SF Forester, you can get SG rear struts, because the spring purge is higher and will allow you to fit bigger tires. We're gonna talk about that in a few minutes. And if maybe you have a newer Forester, Crosstrek or Outback, Ironman just released an all-terrain suspension, which actually provide a 2-inch lift. This can be an interesting option, and my good friend Brucey from West Virginia just installed a set on his Outback, made a review and test videos, so feel free to check it out. Speaking about lift, this is something you will need for off-roading. It will give you more ground clearance, better approach and departure angles, but also allow you to fit bigger tires. The most common way to lift a Subaru is lift blocks or strut top lifts. Basically, a piece of metal you put between the struts and the body of the car. A 2-inch lift is a good compromise for a nice ground clearance, but not too bad for the CVs. You can go up to 2.5 inches of lift on the front and 3 inches on the rear. After that, you will need subframe spacers because the CVs take too much angles. Also, don't forget about trailing arm spacers to get your rear wheel centered in the wheel arches. And just so you know, if you want a bigger lift, like 4-5 inches, maybe even more, it will require a lot more of modifications, like steering knuckle extension, engine, diff and cross member spacers, brake line extensions and more. To get a lift kit, check out the well-known and valuable companies out there like ADF, stands for Anderson Design Fabrication, this is the one I run. You also have SLO for Subi Lift OZ, SGR, LP Adventure, Polytech, Primitive Racing and Made by Made for the European market. Not that with this kind of lift you will wear your CV boots quicker, but they will not fail every 2 weeks like some people say. Just if you plan to lift your Subaru with stock old CV and CV boots, just get 2 spare genuine Subaru CV boots, because the old ones generally fail real quick after the lift. But once the new one are on, you will have some time before they fail. Trust me on that. Now tires. Good tires make a huge difference while off-roading, and it's also a nice way to have a bit more of ground clearance. 215 75 15 inches, like the BF Goodrich KO2s I run, is a good size. The tire is also great, by the way, I love it, and is, I think, a good compromise between tire size and tire weight. 235 75 15 is another popular option, but they might be a bit more difficult to fit on the car, but they are also heavier, which means more power loss, lower gas mileage, but also more stress on the driveline. And you can understand more broken CVs with that. Alright, so as I said, I run the BF Goodrich KO2s and I'm really happy with them. I already have another set waiting for the Tactifos, but I'm still gonna give you other good tires option. So you have the General Grabber 83, the Grabber 82, the Falcon Wild Peak 83W, the Yokohama Geolandar, the Toyo Open Country 83, and all of these tires are all-terrain tires. I think that's the best compromise for our Subarus, and mud tires are gonna be even heavier, louder, so if you drive just a bit on the road, on pavement, it's not gonna be very nice. I will let you check the price range of those tires, but also their weight, and with that you will be able to make your own choice. Now, skid plates. Trust me, that's pretty important. At least one on the front for the engine, oil pan and transmission, but you can also get one on the rear for the rear differential. They will protect some critical components of your car, but also help you slide over rocks or mud if you bottom out. Mine are from the Sub Garage. They're 8mm alloy and they comes with rated recovery points, and that's pretty useful, so that's a good option for my friends in Europe. But there's also other options out there like ADF, Primitive Racing, Rally Tech or LP Adventure. Okay, so now you have a pretty good base to mod your Subaru, so it can be a bit more off-road ready, but there's still other things to think about. First, recovery gear. I really don't recommend you to get out there without any kind of recovery gear, so you can get at least traction boards or recovery boards, something to hair down, but also something to hair up if you have to drive on pavement after. It's pretty important, make a huge difference. I will say maybe a snatch strap properly rated for your car. The ones for our Subarus have a lower rating. And maybe a shovel to dig you out of a bad situation. But you know what? I actually have a full video about my recovery gear and what you should have in your vehicle while off-roading. So make sure to check it out. The link is gonna be here or down below in the description. Another thing is to learn your and your vehicle limits. Remember, even lifted, your Subaru is still just a soccer mom wagon. Okay, a lifted soccer mom wagon, but it's definitely not a rock crawler, so you have some limitations. Also, keep in mind that the lines you're gonna take while off-roading are gonna be really different than the lines of the real four-wheel drive trucks. Also, the weight. This is a pretty big advantage we have with our lightweight Subis. It's pretty important while off-roading to try to limit the weight on the cargo area, the weight on the roof, but also your tires and wheel weight, like all the rotational mass are pretty important, so be careful with that. Also, that's not essential, but this can be useful if you are going on some adventures in the dark. So an LED lights, some ditch light as well, maybe even rock lights in the dark for off-roading. It's really helpful, but don't start with that. It's not essential. Also, you can organize your car and especially your cargo area, like with drawers or molly racks. So that way everything is nicely organized in case of a recovery, but also everything is nicely safe and secured. So while off-roading, your hatchets won't fly right off your head. This is gonna be a bit dangerous. Okay, so now maybe you already have some mods we talked about earlier. Maybe in a few months, in a year, you're gonna have some mods and you're gonna want more. I can understand that. And that's why right now we're gonna talk about advanced off-road mods for your Subaru. Let's get to it. And the first one is gonna be to remove your sway bars, or maybe put a quick disconnect on it. Or you have another option is to leave the front on, but remove the rear. And if you do that, you will have more articulation while off-roading. So we'll have better traction and more wheel on the ground. And this is what we want with our Subarus. But just keep in mind that if you remove those sway bars, obviously you're gonna have more body roll on road. So it really depends of what you do with your car. But even me with my Overland rig, I do a lot of pavement, highway driving. I remove both of my sway bars. That being said, keep in mind that if you have heavy duty springs on the back, it will help with the body roll. So it's actually not that bad. Another one is to get a limited slip differential or LSD on the rear, on your rear differential. This will kind of act like a soft locker, and it will help your rear wheels to rotate the same way at the same time, so better traction. And another advanced transmission mod you can do is to get a DCCD, which is basically a center diff lock. It will give you 50% power on the front and 50 on the rear. So even if you lift a wheel, you will still have power on the other wheels, because without that and open diff, if you lift a wheel, all the power goes to that lifted wheel and you won't move. That's the main problem with the stock Subarus. And now if you want a more hardcore solution, you have the torque locker for the rear, which this time is a real locker. It's the lunchbox kind of locker, so it's not that expensive actually. So I don't have one on my Forester because I think it's really for off-road vehicles. If you don't drive a lot on pavement, it's pretty noisy. You will have to adapt your driving, so I don't want that on mine, but for strict off-road condition it can be pretty useful. Keep in mind that with the manual transmission, if you don't have a center diff lock, it might not be that useful at the end. Another thing to consider is something I have stock on my Forester. This is the only good thing we have here in Europe. This is the low range gearbox. So it comes stock with a naturally aspirated manual transmission Forester and Outback and Impreza in Europe, but also in Australia. So you don't have them in the US. So it's low range, but not that low, but it still helps a lot. I love mine. Every time I'm on the trails, I'm on low gear, and it's a nice help. Another thing to consider is to get long travel off-road coilovers. With that, you're gonna have probably some lift, but also more travel on your suspension. So once again, more traction, less wheel lift. This is really what we want with our Subarus, so that's a great option. Another good thing with those coilovers is that you can get maintenance on it, so you can rebuild them and they will last longer. But also they're actually pretty small in diameters, so you won't have this massive lower spring perch that interfere with bigger tires. That's a good option I'm actually thinking about for my Forester. You have some brands out there like Flat Out Suspension, Gorilla Offroad and Outbeats Suspension. Okay, so that's it for the essential mods to start off-roading your Subaru in good condition. I hope this was helpful and will help you build your dream Subaru. And for even more infos, I invite you to check my playlist about my own builds of my Overland off-road Subaru Forester, but also my dedicated page on my website about it on nlsmoverland.com. You can also check my Instagram account for awesome pictures and my Patreon page to show your support and get exclusive content. Everything is down below in the description. So thank you guys for watching. See you next week.